Writing what would become the precursor to the 2008 novel The Help, Susan Tucker presents a selection of oral history narratives titled Telling Memories Among Southern Women that describes the experiences of African American women domestic workers in the Deep South from the turn of the century to the Civil Rights Movement. The collection of 92 interviews from Louisiana to Florida women, both black and white, provide a great introduction to questions concerning just how African American domestic workers were able to progress politically and socially, even within the oppressive constructs of the American South. To begin such a study, it is first necessary to look at the partially unavoidable transition of African American women from slave labor to domestic work. The first American domestic workers were the female house slaves, dating back to colonial America and the growth of plantation homes in the antebellum South. While Abraham Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation legally freed all enslaved men and women, often the only respectable and available employment for African American women was the very same domestic work of looking after white women's homes and children. Although an 1870 census showed 52% of all employed women worked in domestic and personal service, conditions were especially hard for African American women who faced harsher exploitation due to racial prejudices. One 1912 anonymous account described her life as a house nurse as barely improved from domestic slave labor due to the low wage, long hours demands, coupled with the added responsibility of paying high rent rates and maintaining personal domestic integrity. While political organization against low wages of domestic servants and laundresses was seen as early as the 1880s, with organized strikes occurring in Galveston, Texas, Jacksonville, Mississippi, and Atlanta, Georgia, their efforts were ultimately futile in terms of immediate results. These early acts of social and political organization of African American domestic women into groups such as the Atlanta Washing Society was, however, enormously successful in setting a precedent for collective bargaining and grassroots labor organization that would prove to be greatly beneficial as the next century unfolded. The height and fulfillment of these organized efforts finally gained political leverage through domestic worker strikes in the Civil Rights era. In contrast, legislative action was particularly unsuccessful to African American domestic workers' fight for better conditions. This is best seen as Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which prohibits employment discrimination on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, or national origin, does not include most domestic workers since the requirement only applied to employers with 15 or more employees. While local domestic organizations produced slow but stable progress, the actions of specific political activists in Atlanta was both quicker and more rewarding. Dorothy Bolden founded the National Domestic Workers Union in Atlanta in 1968 as an organization fighting for increased salaries and benefits for women domestic workers. The union not only achieved these goals, but also gained national recognition for its establishment of Maids' Honor Day, which reinforced dignity into domestic work by promoting the importance of its very existence. In summary, the transition of African American house slaves to American domestic employees did not achieve significant success until the 1960s civil rights movement. The combined efforts of political activists and grassroots social organizations allowed African American domestic workers to gain both financial and ethical success.